close my door.
Oh, and then he's gone.
Go to the naughty corner.
Close my door and turn on my
I will share
Okay.
the screen. Where's my share screen? There it is. Let's see. We kind of went through most of paragraph 3, but I think we should probably start again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we didn't get through all of it. And I don't think we can start kind of halfway through with that one.
Okay, V, you wanna read the whole thing and then we'll break it down?
Sure. When the atonement has been completed, all talents will be shared by all the sons of God. God is not partial. All his children have his total love, and all his gifts are freely given to everyone alike. Except ye become as little children means that unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son in his true relationship with the Father. The specialness of God's sons does not stem from exclusion, but from inclusion. All my brothers are special. If they believe they are deprived of anything, their perception becomes distorted. When this occurs, the whole family of God, or the sonship, is impaired in its relationships. I don't even know how much we got through last week with that now. It all feels different, like it does every week.
Yeah, it seems different to me too. Okay, well, we know what the atonement is. So who would like to give a definition of the atonement? When the atonement has been completed, all talents will be shared by all sons of God. So who'd like to give a definition of the atonement?
Well, I've got mine that I refer to all the time. Atonement is reconciliation or remembering who we are.
Okay, so that is the kind of the ongoing miracle of realizing that God is in all things and everything. That's what we see. That's what we choose to see. So the atonement is that recognition of that oneness. So when the atonement has been completed, all talents will be shared by all sons of God. God is not partial. All his children have his total love, and all his gifts are freely given to everyone alike. Except you become as little children means that unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son in his true relationship with the Father. Would anyone like to tackle that one? What that means to you, what that says to you?
Yeah, when I'm seeing children, it reminds me of all the work I've had to do, or that I have done on my inner child, to wake her up and give her some freedom. And I've just got a vision of, as children, we manage to manifest, we do things, we don't have any doubts about who we are. We just go ahead and do what we feel we need to do. So I think it's coming to that freedom again, letting go of all the false laws that we have of how we're supposed to run our lives.
Yeah. Also, if you remember how we were as children, like I didn't anyways. I didn't wonder if dinner if there was gonna be enough food for dinner, or when I woke up, if there was gonna be breakfast. It's like I'm just totally dependent upon my parents to provide. And that same sort of trust and expectation, and yet, all of us, and definitely myself included, will think about the future, and we'll think, well, what if, and not have that complete faith that no matter what it is provided by, and you will be provided by, and always be guided by. And I can get there, but when I was a child, it wasn't even a thought of I had to work myself to get there. It just was. It was just a known fact in my world. And for me, that's kind of what it's saying, is when we have that kind of full recognition of our dependency on God, that's when we know the real power. I had a question for the women on the call. when the course is written in such sort of in male terminology, like the sonship and the father, and then again the son, does that, how do you equate that for yourself when it's so gender specific? What happens inside of you? Does it like not mean anything? Does it's like, it's just like the sonship is all humanity? Is that what happens, or does something else get triggered?
No, I think for myself personally, I mean, it is a trigger to start with because we're meant to be in this, all-encompassing world. But really, if you look back at anything, old movies or books or what have you, it's all about the men, all about the men. But I think that if it was to be rewritten to be gender exclusive, it just wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't sound the same. And God is male or female for whoever is, at that particular time.
Yeah, because I've held off inviting some people to the course primarily because they're pretty gender sensitive, and but that's a really great way to look at it, Linda. Does anyone else have any input on that? Or
I would love it if we had a much more gender neutral language just all over, but yeah, I'm fine with being the son.
I've had to work through this book several times to get over a lot of the language, and not just about the just male exclusive language, but now that I've been reading it so much for doing lessons, I'm reading for lessons every day, even if I don't post on them every day, and studying this with you guys, that it doesn't refer to male or female anymore. Those words do not mean male or female for me.
Yep.
no, I don't think they do either. Well, then the next line goes, the specialness of God's Son does not stem from exclusion, but from inclusion. So that brings us all together. All my brothers are special. If they believe they are deprived of anything, their perception becomes distorted. When this occurs, the whole family of God or the sonship is impaired in its relationships. That makes sense to me, because if anyone feels like they're deprived, then they're not in the atonement. And if they're not in the atonement, then the atonement is not complete. And then when it says, and when this occurs, the whole family of God or the sonship is impaired in its relationships, which would mean that if someone saw themselves excluded, then they would begin to envy those that they felt included, and there would be a disparity in the hierarchy of the sonship and its relationship with God. So, yeah, I get that. Does anyone have anything, any other perception of that last paragraph, or that last couple lines?
I think there's a lot of separateness in the world and people feeling separate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's I was just telling Gary before we started recording that yesterday they had a country town. There's about 560 people that live in town, about 1,500 around town, and there was it was a few months ago now, probably 3 or 4 months ago, that the electrician committed suicide. So everyone's a lot more aware of suicide. And I went to a workshop yesterday about suicide awareness. So, and it's all about feeling disconnected and not realizing, 700 people showed up to his funeral.
Wow.
It's not like he wasn't loved. How did he not know this?
Yeah, I think it goes beyond that, though. It's not about how many people, that whether you're loved or not. It just goes, It just goes beyond that. I think
Oh, yeah.
I think you know that you're loved, but whatever is going on at the time is it just becomes too hard. And it's not seen as a selfish thing either. It's seen as well, I need to do this for myself. And we're always talking about looking after self first. So yeah.
I think sometimes people just get really tired of the grind of survival. They just get tired. And then oftentimes people feel like there's not a large enough purpose that they're contributing to, and they can't seem to find it, or they don't have the energy to actually produce the results or be able to drive themselves to fulfill the purpose to the level that they know would bring satisfaction to them. So I think there's lots of different reasons why. I mean, the thing that I think always lands in my head is that, every hair is counted, every breath is counted. We have a karmic destiny that we have to meet out. And I remember the master in India would always say that suicide is the worst thing that someone could do as far as a karmic debt, because they're throwing away the gift of the human body, the human form, which is, he would say the God Brahman pines for the day it can take a human form, because in this form we can reach high levels of spiritual awakening, and we throw it away. And then he would say, my suicide never resolves the karmic burden. In fact, it adds to the karmic burden, so that the next lifetime will even be more troublesome than this one, will be more difficult, will be harder, because you add on the karmic debt of taking your own life. So that always said to me, well, I wouldn't be escaping much. I'd just be kind of lighting the fire a little broader, a little hotter. And why would I want to do that? But yeah, I can understand why people would. And then at the same time, I think it is a gross misjudgment in the gift that we've been given, and that we have to really have to buckle down and find out what we are here to do. And if we're concerned about that, then we seek. We read spiritual literature, we buckle down, and we start trying to find the answers for ourselves. I know lots of people. I met a guy yesterday, actually, at this coffee shop here in the Villages, which was so weird. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm a gardener, and I've traveled all over the world studying, Hinduism and Christianity and Buddhism and Jainism and Judaism." And he said, I've spent my life studying different paths to God. And I thought, time well spent, and what have you learned? And he just said that, fundamentally, that there is no religion, and that it is just one relationship with the love of God, and that's really all there is. And they all say the same thing. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Does anyone want to add any more to this? Joe, why don't you do V4?
Ultimately, every member of the family of God must return. The miracle calls him to return because it blesses and honors him. Even though he may be absent in spirit, God is not mocked. It is not a warning, but a reassurance. God would be mocked if any of his creations lacked holiness. The creation is whole, and the mark of wholeness is holiness, excuse me. Miracles are affirmations of sonship, which is a state of completion and abundance.
I love the first line. Ultimately, every member of the family of God must return, meaning must return back to source at some point. And the miracle is, of course, seeing through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, seeing the spirituality in each one of us. The miracle calls him to return to oneness because it blesses and honors him, even though he may be absent in spirit. That line I don't quite get, even though he may be absent in spirit. Maybe it means the miracle calls him to return because it blesses him and honors him, even though he may not be in full practice in sort of, like he may not be meditating, he may not be doing prayer, he may not be doing any of those things, but it still calls to him and still blesses and honors him.
That's
Does
sort of
anyone
what I
see
was
anything different?
feeling. Sort of what I
Say-
was feeling as well. It doesn't matter what you practice or what you study. When we perish, we all go back and stand before God. Well, you could be total atheist here on this sphere, but when you pass, you still get to stand before God, and what do they say? You get to replay all your life and all that fun stuff, answer all those wonderful questions, or however it's referred to.
Maybe it's just a celebration when we cross over and people are just like, oh, damn, I'm so glad you're here. And maybe there's no recalling of our deeds in life, but maybe there is. The next line is, God is not marked if not a warning, but a reassurance. God would be marked if any of his creations lacked holiness. Huh.
Is it marked or mocked?
Mocked. Did I say marked?
Sounded like
sorry.
you said marked. It's throwing me off. I've got sinus issues, so it's probably me.
Yeah, well, I got marbles in my mouth too, so between the two of us, we may have a difficult time. So God is not mocked, is not a warning, but a reassurance. God would be mocked if any of his creations lacked holiness. That, I think, is really lovely. I know that you, V, when you go and see your horse, you must feel like a certain sense of the sacred with your horse, where there is this divine spirit inside the animal. And they're communicating in ways that's not using language, but communicating just the same.
Yeah,
So
it's a
every
huge
single,
energy.
yeah,
It's
because
it's
every
it's
single
bizarre
thing.
actually, because
Yeah.
I said, look, I'll buy her because I'm helping out the farm, but nothing really changes. She still lives there, I just get to hang out with her a bit more often. But Catherine said, no, it changes everything, and it does, because now when I go out in the paddock, she comes trotting up to me. It's not like, oh, hi, human. It's like, and the other horses are going, where are you going? So there's definitely an energetic change because I'm her human and she recognizes that. And yeah, the energy is just massive with them. It's, you can spot it when you're looking at them across the paddock. And they obviously can see what we're up to and what we're feeling. And even the horses that were in 2 paddocks further up the hill, the last time I went to see her, and she was playing somewhere with her sister in some bushes, so she didn't see me straight up, and then she came running out and trotting, and I was still a fair way off, and they saw her trotting up to me, and they're all neighing at her, and she's neighing back at them. It's like, well, there's a whole conversation going on here because things have changed, and there's an energetic thing that's going on that is just beyond words.
Yeah, and it's it's that kind of holiness of all things. I don't know, how many of you have dogs, or do any of you have dogs?
Had.
No? Had
dogs, yeah.
Yeah, because we're thinking about getting one in the not too distant future. And I know for me, like, dogs have saved my life and mended my heart when it was totally broken. And I just think there's something very special about the animal kingdom and what it's capable of doing, because it is oftentimes just pure love that comes forth from them. Right? Just pure love.
definitely.
So the last paragraph is the creation is whole, and the mark of wholeness is holiness. Miracles are affirmations of sonship, which is a state of completion and abundance. Okay. I went for a walk yesterday, was it? With a friend of mine who's a new friend. I purposely, she leaves her husband at home, I leave my husband at home, and her and I just hang out together. And Robert's like, how come I'm not invited? It's because I said, because I need a relationship with someone other than you, right? And she's a neuropsychologist, which I've never heard of that as a psychologically, as a term for an offshoot of regular psychotherapy. And we had these incredible conversations, and she showed me this new walking trail, which is in the bird sanctuary where I live. And it's all the marshlands, and there's just, I guess, thousands of really unusual birds that migrate from all over the country that end up in this little plot of land. And we just sat there on a bench, watching all the giant, snapping turtles and all the geese and all the other wild songbirds and stuff. And I just thought, this is like, it's such a sacred place where people go to just breathe in the really the complex matrix of nature and all of its life forms. Well, not all, but a lot of their life forms. And I just thought it really is an abundance of God's presence in places like that where there's a lot of wildlife. Does anyone else feel that out in the bush?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
We have John's Marsh down the street, and I love to go walk the nature trail as well. And you got to be careful. You might step on frogs, you might step on snakes, you might step on turtles. Birds will come flying out of nowhere. Herrings, blue herrings. There's geese, Canadian geese. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah, same here. Same here. We had a herd of deer in our backyard the other day, which is really special.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get that when I go to Murray's farm, and we'll just sit on the porch, and there's a jam, and there's 2 black swans who've now taken residency there, so they'll be having babies soon.
Nice.
And you look up into the paddock, and there's kangaroos, and there's foxes and rabbits, and there's cows, and it's just watching the wildlife and seeing what's going on and all the birds around as well. It's who needs television?
I know, no kidding. You sound like you're in love, V.
Yeah.
Well, I don't blame you. Sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Carly, would you like to read again, darling, of V5?
Sure. Whatever is true is eternal and cannot change or be changed. Spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect. But the mind can elect what it chooses to serve. The only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve 2 masters. If it elects to do so, the mind can become the medium by which spirit creates along the line of its own creation. If it does not freely elect to do so, it retains its creative potential, but places itself under tyrannous rather than authoritative control. As a result, it imprisons, because such are the dictates of tyrants. To change your mind means to place it at the disposal of true authority.
Let's read that again.
Yeah, it was quite a mouthful.
I'm going to see if I can change that so it's all going to fit nicely onto one thing. Oh, what have I done there? That's all right. So if I go to the next page now. There, now we've got it on. Can everyone read that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that fit on the screen? Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Does anyone want to try to break it down, or you want me to give it a go?
think someone can read the couple of sentences and then we can break it up. Shall I read the couple of sentences? Yeah. Whatever is true is eternal and cannot change or be changed. Spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect, but the mind can elect what it chooses to serve.
So the mind can elect to serve either the perfection of the spirit or the separation of the ego and the mind. You want me to take a sentence, V?
The only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve two masters.
I love that line. How many of you ever found that you're doing your spiritual practice and you're in a pretty good headspace, and then something comes along and you start judging, you start condemning, you start going down this track of, put it this way, not in the eternal oneness of the atonement. You start going down a whole nother way. And that is when your mind is when it's divided.
Yeah.
When it's serving two masters.
Less of it now, but definitely I can recognize when I used to do it for sure.
Yeah, me too. Less of it now, but definitely have that. I'll read the next one. If it elects to do so, the mind can become the medium by which spirit creates along the line of its own creation. If it does not freely elect to do so, it retains its creative potential, but places itself under tyrannous rather than the authoritative control. I'll tell you what I get from that. That we can elect. Let me make sure I got this. The mind can become the mean by which spirit creates along the line of its own creation. So what I get from that, if we choose to follow down a path of accountability, of leading this sort of spiritual life that we are studying right now, that we begin to focus our minds towards oneness, towards the atonement, towards our own responsibility, and stay out of the drama triangle and stay all in the creator triangle, we become the medium by which our spirit creates along the line of its own creation. So I read that as whatever we're focused on, we're creating more of. And if we're following two masters, we have the option of following either one, the road of separation or the road of seeking oneness and atonement.
So we can choose to make it hard, or we can choose to surrender.
Absolutely. That was so eloquently said, V. Yeah. Has anyone been faced with not a moment, but a situation where you can't figure it out with your mind, you can't get relief from the mind, and you can only get relief by surrendering it over because your mind can't figure it out? Has anyone been faced with that recently? It's like, I can't figure this out. I can't resolve it with my head or with my thinking. I can only resolve it by handing it over to a higher power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the last month and a half.
And once you did that, what happened for you?
More peace started to come in, better guidance, clearer answers. I know I am still a work in progress on the subject, but more angels have been coming to me to help walk me through with the guidance that I've been seeking, because I literally called out, like, I'm tired of trying to figure this life out. I fully surrender. Guide me, push me, shove me, whatever it takes to be on the right path. Just allow me to recognize it and walk it with full surrender, ease, and grace. And it still took a few weeks, but it eventually happened. And it was literally Sunday night that angel came, and a lot of the turmoil within my heart was released.
Awesome. And Linda, spending so much time on the road and being in the place of adventure and curiosity that you've been in, what's your internal world like? I know your external world is shifting, changing, and you have kind of a free spirit about you, but what's happening internally? Have you faced things that you feel like you've just had to say, okay, well, I just have to send this over to something higher than me because I can't resolve it?
Yeah, absolutely. I just if it gets too difficult or I start thinking about it way too much, which I have been known to do on the odd occasion, I will give it up to the universe. That's my sanity. It's by giving it up to the universe and just saying, well, whatever will be, will be. Like, with all the van troubles and everything that I had, that really did affect me.
I would
Because
think.
I thought, well, how far can I actually get on this journey when I've only just started it? So yeah, I just gave it up to the universe, and the universe always provides.
Awesome. Awesome. Carolee, do you have any story you want to share around that?
No, not off the top of my head.
V, how about you?
With that question, have you had a problem that so monkey mind takes over, and I have times where I just try and work out how am I going to solve this problem. And consciously, I don't know that I've actually listening to Joe and Linda, it's quite inspirational because I don't know that I consciously give it up. I'll go to sleep and I'll wake up with a solution, or I'll wake up just feeling better about it and being able to release it. But I haven't in the past consciously just surrender it. I always think I need to have some kind of control with a problem that's gone through my monkey mind. So that will be changing. And I release it.
You do really well at, you have a strong reasoning capacity, but it's when, and I think that's one of the gifts as well, because it says here, you cannot serve two masters. If it elects to do so, the mind can become the medium by which spirit creates along the line of its own creation, which is, I'm going to use my mind, I'm going to focus, I'm going to do my very best to create a solution. And then, if that solution does not bear fruit or doesn't get the results we want, we go to surrender and surrender over the results. At least that's how I read that line. Okay. It says, if it does not freely elect to do so, it retains its creative potential, but places itself under tyrannous rather than authoritative control. As a result, it imprisons, because such are the dictates of tyrants. To change your mind means to place it at the disposal of true authority. I would agree the mind imprisons for sure. And fear is always a tyrant. I believe what it's saying is that to change your mind means to change it to the true authority, or to, like V just said, to surrender that over, means to place it at the disposal of true authority. Does anyone want to have any comments on that, on those last two lines?
For me, when I think of the tyrants, the way that it pops into my mind between the tyrants and the true authority is you have man's laws and you have God's laws, and it's which do you want to follow? Do you want to throw God's laws to the wayside and follow man's laws and see how things go, or do you want to follow God's laws and, I mean, in my personal opinion, know that you'll be okay regardless?
You know, for me, the only law that that ever made sense to me about God is that it only sees oneness and it only sees perfection, and all things brought to us, taken away from us, all things from our past, our present, and our future is really done out of a loving intention for us. And if that is the law that guides me to know that, I put out my best effort to do what I do and do it in a way that I think is right, and then surrender over the results. But that one thing about the atonement and about creating miracles, if I can stay there, then I feel like I'm not following the dictates of my tyrannical mind. I'm not living in fear. I'm not living in angst. I'm living in a place of perpetual surrender, like it's all going to work out perfectly. Does anyone get anything else?
I'm actually having a bit of a tangent thought at the moment.
Oh, good. Go for it.
Thinking how powerful our minds are with reading all this. But one thing the course doesn't really talk about is, so we're thinking the mind in our head, but what about the mind in our heart and our stomach?
I think it's just mind. I think it's just mind, period.
Yeah. Because if we're listening more to our heart and our gut, then I think we have less of these issues anyway. And we're actually connecting in a more truer sense to a greater, higher power.
Well, remember that one line that it says, the only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve two masters. And then it says, if it elects to do so, the mind can become the medium by which spirit creates along the line of its own creation. And I read that to be whatever the mind is focused upon is what spirit creates. And so it could be exactly that. Like it's the aspect of the beauty of our life, not the divided, fearful part. So I'm not reading the mind as something that is particularly negative, but as a medium by which the spirit creates. And I believe that we create through the focus of our minds, and that equals our worship. And if we're focused on just that one thing that I spoke about, before, of the the perfection of the matrix, then I think, the mind can become a friend. At least that's how I'm seeing it right now. Does anyone else see it differently?
Nope. Okie dokie.
Okay.
I've got stuff bouncing around, but it kind of pertains to most of what's been talked about today. So maybe at the end, I'll have a clear path of how to put it all together into words.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to just share something that happened between me and Robert the other day that, I don't know, I hope it adds some clarity. But this is just where I kept thinking how useful the mind can be, and how useful when we guide the mind in the right direction, it can be. But I forget what we were talking about. It was something about, the political system, or, something like that, or the shootings that just happened in Nashville, Tennessee. And all these kids got murdered by an insane gun person, and the Republicans are like, don't talk to me about gun control. We need to talk about mental health instead, all that. And he said, God, I just am so furious at, X, Y, and Z personality, because this is how much harm's happening. And he just kept going on. And I just said, it's like we need to hardwire ourselves through habit to start seeing something different than looking at things from a black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. We need to look at it from other perspectives. And I shared something. I said, what if we looked at it from the perspective of, we have no idea that the person that we perceive as causing harm is causing harm to someone. That person then becomes wounded, goes on a quest to discover the answers for themselves, seeks for the answers for themselves, and begins to wake up to whatever level of spiritual awakening that they could wake up to at this point in time. What if the person doing ill actually begins to eventually feel the moral burden of doing ill and begins to start seeking for answers that are outside the violence that they're promoting? What if that person begins to wake up from the pain and the moral burden, again, of causing harm to people? What if it all is this perfect symphony of different souls teaching each other different soul lessons that they have to learn, they only learn through suffering? What if we looked at it like that, instead of that's good, that's bad, they're horrible, they're not horrible? What if we began to do that? And, Robert looked at me and said, well, that certainly would ease the anger, because I told him, I'm like, because we're watching Doris, become worse right now with her dementia. And I said, Doris right now, her behavior is an accumulation of every thought she's ever thought. All the burdens of her life, all the perceived betrayal of her life, she perceives it everywhere now, because the neurosynaptic highways are less and less and less, and she's defaulting to the ones that were most conditioned in her life, because those are the only ones left. So her thought systems, no matter what she's seeing, is like, oh, it means this. And it's always, someone's going to betray me, or someone's going to put me away, or someone's going to do harm to me. No matter what we do, we could go down with, baskets of flowers and like, why are you bringing me this? Are you thinking I'm dying? It'll be something along those lines. So I said, we have to start conditioning ourselves differently, to think broader, to think more about the beauty of what we can't see, that we suspect we do see. Because if any of this is true, it's about we're all loved equally, we're all being evolved equally, we are all part of the sonship, there is no lack of love, and we're all precious to God. Then why are some people on the street right now living underneath a bridge? And why am I in a house with a new car in the driveway? If we're all loved equally, like, how can the mind, which is based on separation, rationalize that? And the only way that it can fit in the scheme of things is that because I've been, on the street, almost homeless, definitely hungry, and very, very poor, and thinking, what is this? So the only thing that I've been able to conjure up in my head and think is that one line for the Course in Miracles, which we will eventually get to with the Course, where it says, you walk into heaven hand in hand with your brothers and sisters, which simply means to me, I have to stop judging. I have to stop seeing through a separated mind. I have to know that we're all precious. I have to stop condemning, especially, and criticizing, so that I see no separation at all. That person over there is just as loved by God as I am. I have no idea what their spiritual lesson is from the particular hardship they're going through. I have no idea what they're teaching themselves. I have no idea how they will use this as an impetus to wake themselves up. But I know for certain in my life, the greatest pain I've ever been in, I've had the greatest breakthroughs from. If I survive the pain, If people drop down into victim and start blaming and shaming and going into self-pity, that is where they lose their way. And that's when it becomes worse and worse and worse. But I don't think any of us are loved less. And I think that that is a difference between when we're ruled by the tyrannical tendencies of our mind, seeing everything as an attack, and God, we're not loved, or God doesn't exist at all, or whether we see it as a blessing. And if we see it as a blessing, it changes. It changes the suffering. I rambled. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to that or subtract from that? Or
I liked what you said there, Gary. And I want to throw in there, yeah, God loves us all equally, but it's up to us to love ourselves. So
yeah,
in the nice house with the new car in the driveway, you loved yourself enough to put effort into yourself. But the people living under the bridge, they may struggle with finding that love for themselves. Therefore, they didn't put much of any effort. Maybe their thought process is, if God loves me, he's going to provide, and I just get to sit here and do nothing. The mind is a marvelous mystery where, every single one of our minds works differently. It's the whole perspective. We all are seeing the same screen right now, but we're all viewing these words in a different perspective. So
yeah, I know.
unfortunately, yeah, experiences happen, and we as humans are label makers, and we put labels on everything. But when we can remove those labels, we can truly find that peace in every situation. I can talk about horrible experiences that take me back to the suicide moments of my life. I've got 32 years of depression and anxiety with over 140 suicide attempts. But I didn't have love for myself. I didn't have faith in myself. I was programmed to believe other than what I believe currently and now. But I can look at these horrible experiences and see that growth, the duality of the situation that you're speaking of. I wasn't the guy homeless under a bridge eating out of garbage cans, but at the same time, I can totally relate, because I know what it's like to have next to nothing, but be grateful to still at least have the roof over my head.
Yeah, Joe, I know. I just I feel that the way to a sacred way of reframing our lives is to practice seeing the divine in all things. And if we can do that, even practice that one thing, I find it in nature more so, and I'm grateful that I'm surrounded by nature. But I will say that human beings, I can love dogs for the day is long, but put me in a whole group of people that are fighting about politics or fighting about something else, I'm like, I'm not feeling the love. I think the real test is to feel the love no matter what. No matter what. So, I guess what I'd love to suggest to us is that for this upcoming week, I mean, I've done this more since we've been, doing this little thing of, giving maybe a suggestion of what we need to focus on for the next week. But I'm gonna do my very best to be incredibly grateful for everything, and to see the divine in all things, and just continue to practice that. And on every Tuesday night, I'll remind myself to, because by the time from one Tuesday to the next Tuesday, by the following Tuesday, I'm like, what was I supposed to be doing again? So what we want to do is just continue. I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to practice again, taking longer walks in the woods. Whoever I meet on those walks, see the light of God in them, just like if I'm looking at like a beautiful deer on the side of the path, look at the person with the same level of awe, and see if I can master that more.
It's a difficult thing to master, because I started months ago now with just expressing gratitude and just saying thank you for every situation. And there are times where I forget or I fall off, but following or finding my way back to that, just being thankful for everything, it really does make a shift in your world.
It does. It absolutely does. I was on a podcast today, a big podcast. This guy has thousands of people, thousands of listeners, and he was kind of goofy, you know. It was called like the Attitude Podcast, and I'm like, oh boy. And he's super gregarious and loud and let's go out and slay it kind of guy. And then I come on, and he asked me a question about attitude, like what would I tell people about attitude? How would I coach them if I was going to say something that would coach them? And I said something similar to what I've said here, but just that every one of us is precious. Every one of us is a thread in the tapestry of humanity. And the more that we awaken within ourselves, the brighter that thread glows, and the more the tapestry of humanity is completed. And that the only thing that stops that brightness from shining is just a series of pictures, sounds, and feelings that constitute our memories. Our language, which is our creative force, we have not understood the power of it, and it directionalizes our minds, and it begins to start putting us in a state of oneness with all things. And that when we focus our minds supported by an aligned language, we actually begin to start waking up to the power we are. And I ended it with something else, but that was fundamentally the gist of it. But the thing I know that needs to happen is if I do not spend time in contemplation of my highest held values and what I need to practice during the day, if I'm not remembering that when I first get up, I forget it throughout the rest of the day. So my invitation to us is that we strive to set the intention of our day at the beginning of our day and practice it throughout the day. So I know what I'm going to do. So V, what are you going to do?
I'm going to let people know when I see the brilliance in them. I'm actually going to verbalize it.
Awesome. Linda?
I can't wait to see you in the weekend, then, B. What am I going to do? No, I'm not going to. I will.
I am.
I'm going to continue to place certain things into the hands of the universe, because some of those things I just can't figure out for myself. But I think I need to do. Instead of thinking about it, I need to do.
Awesome. Carly?
Just said what Lady Linda just said, just reminded me of just before I finished making a jacket and I was just giving it its final press and I burnt a hole in the lining. And so how long am I going to sulk, or am I going to try and, I don't know, hide it somehow or something? No, I'm going to recut that piece and replace it. And once I just started doing that, I'm like, it's not even a big deal. So yeah,
just doing it,
yeah, just fix it and it'll be fine.
Classic. So that's how you're going to approach everything from this day forward, for at least for this coming week. Just take action.
Yeah, just do it.
Awesome. Joe?
So I'm a guinea pig in a friend's coaching, and on the call last night, what we came to was an exercise that she has asked me to work on on a daily basis. So every morning, like you said, if you don't set your morning right, it's not going to be a great day. So every morning, my practice is spending a minimum of 5 minutes in the heart center practicing self-love and self-respect.
Awesome. Awesome. I like that.
Yeah, it's an amazing course. You guys know Callie Bolo, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, she's doing, I think it's like a reaction coaching or something, and she's like, hey, you want to be a guinea pig? I need practice. And I was like, sure.
Is this our Callie?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. I love Callie.
Yeah. Yeah, she's doing amazing stuff with this. Like my main statement is I validate my uniqueness by living my best life, which that changed last night to living the best life. Getting that my puts you in the ego center. So changing that my to a the allows me to be more open to receiving the best life. So doing amazing things, slowly finding more healing.
Well, I'm really glad that you survived all the dark points of your life, Joe, because you're such a precious soul, and I'm really glad that you made it to the other side of that.
Trigger warning. I was brave enough to pull the trigger on 2 different occasions and the gun wouldn't fire. On the second occasion, I realized I'm not allowed to leave. I've got a big purpose to achieve here. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but yeah, I'm not allowed to go until I finish what I'm supposed to do.
That's exactly right, my friend. And so I'm just happy that we all show up here on a Tuesday night and share what we share. V, did you share?
Yes. Yes, I'm going to let people know when I see their brilliance.
That's right.
Rosemary's just shown up, but I'm not going to open it up because we finished. So I'll send her a message that she was an hour late.
Who? Rosemary?
Rosemary, yeah.
Oh, poor thing.
Shall I let her in and you can just have a quick chat, and I'll just stop recording? Or just...
Yeah, I'm gonna go because if I'm on the call, she'll talk to me forever.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'll just email her because we.
Yeah, or you can just stay on the call when we all check off. Just let her in and say, hey, it's an hour earlier.
Yep.
She's in Puerto Rico, so she must got the time confused.
Yeah.
She'll be very disappointed. Okay, you guys have
still
a great
looking to
night.
hook up with you too, Gary. So keep an eye out for an email.
Okay, no worries. Okay, gang,
See
that's our commitment. You guys take care, and we will see you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.